One moment, Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban were Hollywood's untouchable dream, the couple that made forever look easy. The next, their love story turned into headlines. But as the noise grew, something important was missing. It wasn't scandal. It wasn't betrayal. It was truth. Because truth rarely explodes, it fades quietly like music after the curtain falls. When Nicole finally filed for divorce, her words were just a single line. The marriage has irretrievably broken down. No anger, no drama, no emotional theater. It was as if she had practiced calm for this very storm. And maybe she had. Years before the split, Nicole often spoke in interviews about solitude, how peace comes from stillness, how space protects the heart. Looking back now, those words don't sound like reflections. They sound like rehearsals. Because silence was never strange to her, it was her armor. She'd walked this road before through heartbreak and public judgment. When her first marriage ended under 1,000 flashing cameras, the pain didn't just scar her, it shaped her. It taught her that sometimes the strongest response is none at all. So when the chapter with Keith closed, Nicole didn't defend, argue, or explain. She simply left. And in a culture addicted to noise, that quiet exit echoed louder than any confession. The silence filled the void, and the world rushed to fill it with theories. That's when whispers began to circle, some pointing toward Joe Rogan's alleged discussion. Not about scandal, but about truth, how fame slowly erodes intimacy. The claim was never confirmed, but the message resonated everywhere. Sometimes even the most unshakable love bends under the weight of performance. Think about it, Keith Urban's identity revolved around love. His music, his speeches, his tattoos, all tributes to devotion. Every song sounded like a promise. Every red carpet glance a love letter. But devotion, when lived in the spotlight, turns into its own kind of burden. When millions expect perfection, where can honesty breathe? Behind the smiles are sleepless nights. Behind "we're fine" are moments of silence that say otherwise. And over time, that silence becomes distance. Because the real secret about long Hollywood marriages isn't betrayal, it's burnout. The slow, invisible unraveling of two people lost beneath applause. Nicole Kidman once said, "The greatest risk in love is that it can vanish without warning." Today, those words sound hauntingly prophetic. She didn't lose Keith in one dramatic moment, she lost him in small, invisible ways. Missed dinners, delayed calls, flights that didn't align, and the quiet distance that feels colder than anger. That's the kind of heartbreak no one sings about. Maybe that's why the alleged Joe Rogan discussion, true or not, struck such a chord. Because it wasn't about rumor. It was about reflection. The idea that every love has two versions, the one the world celebrates, and the one that exists in silence. For years, the world saw perfection. Keith and Nicole holding hands at premieres, smiling through interviews, expressing gratitude in every spotlight. But behind that grace, the private story whispered something else, not betrayal, but distance. Court filings and timelines hinted at two souls slowly growing apart. No villains. No scandal. Just two people standing in the quiet aftermath of a once beautiful bond. And maybe that's why this story captivated millions, because it felt painfully human. It reminded everyone that even the strongest love can lose its rhythm. That's the quiet tragedy of fame. It doesn't kill love, it edits it until only the camera-approved version remains. Let's rewind to 1 year before the separation, Keith Urban's emotional speech on stage. With tears in his eyes, he thanked Nicole for saving him, calling her his anchor. The world called it one of the most romantic moments in award show history. But now that moment feels different. Was it gratitude? Or goodbye? Was it love? Or a final attempt to hold on? Time makes us question the lines between passion and pain. Because when people sense something slipping away, they often love louder, perform harder, trying to fill the silence. If that speech was Keith's way of clinging to what was left, it was heartbreak wrapped in beauty. And if the rumored Rogan insight meant anything, it was this: fame doesn't break relationships. It magnifies what's already fragile. Every camera, every quote, every fan expectation becomes another mirror, forcing lovers to see not just each other, but the world's reflection of them. Under that kind of light, even love starts gasping for air. That's what most audiences never see: the quiet exhaustion of being symbols instead of people. After the announcement, Nicole didn't fade away. She re-emerged, centered, elegant, and radiating calm. Her interviews became lessons in gratitude, reflection, and renewal. She spoke about wholeness and embracing every chapter with peace. Keith, on the other hand, chose a different kind of expression: silence. No denials, no statements, just songs. And if you listen closely, his new lyrics tell the story. Words can't distance healing, forgiveness, and finding yourself again. He didn't have to explain. The music did it for him. In that there's poetry, Nicole found peace in stillness, Keith found truth in sound. Two artists carrying the same pain, translating it into different forms of art. Two artists who once turned love into performance now use silence and melody as therapy. That's why the so-called Rogan connection still matters. Even if Joe Rogan never actually spoke about their marriage, his name changed how people viewed it. Because Rogan represents something Hollywood rarely tolerates: unfiltered conversation. He speaks without scripts, without approval, and that unpredictability threatens the perfection show business tries to maintain. So when his name entered the Nicole and Keith story, it wasn't about proof, it was about perception. Rogan's rumored insight that Nicole had drawn a line to protect her peace became less about exposure and more about boundaries, about knowing when love starts feeling like survival. That's why the theory lived on. Because audiences weren't chasing scandal. They were searching for meaning. People didn't want to know who was right. They wanted to understand why something so beautiful unraveled. After 19 years, 2 children, and nearly 2 decades of shared fame, their marriage didn't collapse in flames. It simply dissolved into quiet. Maybe that's the most honest kind of ending. Not every heartbreak explodes. Some just fade with grace. The world loves villains, heroes, and grand finales. But sometimes it's simply 2 souls who grew beyond the story they once shared. That doesn't make them failures, it makes them human. In the end, Nicole chose peace. Keith chose reflection. And neither of them weaponized their pain for headlines. That restraint in a world built on exposure feels almost revolutionary. Because maybe the most powerful love stories aren't the ones that never end, they're the ones that teach us something before they do. As for Joe Rogan's rumored commentary, real or not, it became a mirror to the culture watching it all unfold. A reminder that we crave explanations more than acceptance. When love ends quietly, we invent noise to fill the silence. But in this story, silence was the message. Nicole didn't need to defend herself. Her absence said everything words couldn't. And Keith, he spoke through his art. In one of his old songs, he sang, "Some hearts don't fade, they just change shape." Maybe that's what happened here? Love didn't die. It evolved into something quieter, softer, and real. Yet the world couldn't stop replaying. That same haunting moment, Keith Urban on stage voice, trembling eyes glistening, thanking Nicole Kidman for saving his life. That clip turned into a digital love letter for millions who still believed in forever. But when the news of their separation broke, a question hung heavy in the air. How could someone speak with such devotion one year and drift away the next? That contradiction became fuel for speculation, for late-night debates and endless headlines, trying to decode the timeline. And as always, the internet turned its gaze toward the one man who, according to unverified chatter online, had supposedly hinted at the cracks before the world saw them: Joe Rogan. Again, it must be made absolutely clear, there is no verified audio transcript or confirmed segment proving Rogan ever discussed their private life. What exists are online fragments, threads, posts, and speculative commentary claiming he might have referenced the idea that Nicole saw signs long before the public did. That she confronted the truth with calm strength, and when love stopped feeling like safety, she made a choice. Not out of anger, but out of clarity. It's the kind of story that feels cinematic, not because it's proven, but because it reflects something deeply human. That's why it spread. Listeners of Joe Rogan's podcast know his obsession with human behavior, how fame, pressure, and isolation quietly reshape even the strongest people. He often talks about life on the road, how the spotlight that feeds your career can slowly drain your spirit. So when that conversation got attached to Keith Urban's world, the theory caught fire. Because Keith's life on tour wasn't glitter and luxury, it was exhaustion wrapped in applause. For nearly 2 decades, his reality was neon lights, hotel walls, and airport lounges. Over 200 shows a year. Every performance demanded connection, charisma, and emotion, the kind that leaves little energy for real life once the curtain falls. On stage, he came alive. But once the music stopped, the silence became heavy. Rogan himself has described that emptiness, the sameness, the travel the way routine erodes reality. So when whispers online claimed that Nicole had reached her breaking point, people believed it not because there was evidence, but because they understood that kind of loneliness. It wasn't betrayal. It was absence. Sometimes love isn't destroyed by someone else, it fades because no one's there. Keith once told interviewers that he and Nicole fought for their connection through distance and chaos. "We talk every day," he said. "No matter where I am, I call her." For years, that daily call became their anchor, proof that communication could conquer time zones. But connection only survives when both people can truly listen. As the tours grew longer and the nights at home shorter, fans began noticing small changes. Fewer public moments, fewer interviews together, fewer glimpses of the laughter that once defined them. Meanwhile, Nicole was thriving. Producing, acting, parenting, balancing everything with a quiet kind of strength. Her interviews reflected gratitude and presence, the determination to be there for her daughters, no matter what the industry demanded. To outsiders, it seemed like she was holding the family steady while Keith was living between cities and stages. It wasn't scandal, it was strain. And strain has a way of rewriting even the most passionate love stories. So when Joe Rogan, a voice known for saying what others won't, was rumored to have spoken about Nicole drawing a line, people listened because it made emotional sense, not because it was proven. It fit the rhythm of real life, how couples sometimes drift long before they break. But facts remain facts. What's confirmed is that Keith Urban toured extensively through 2024 and 2025, performing in more than 100 venues across continents. Nicole Kidman stayed mostly in Nashville, balancing motherhood with her film projects. And in September 2025, she filed for divorce. What happened between those years remains unspoken. But sometimes silence is the story. Because when love stretches too far and the distance keeps widening, the quiet becomes its own confession. It's not anger, it's acceptance. The sound of two hearts finally realizing they've been living in different time zones for far too long. When the divorce papers finally surfaced, it wasn't the drama that made headlines, it was the math. The custody deal wasn't just ink on paper. It was a statement written between the lines. Nicole Kidman, 306 days a year. Keith Urban, 59. No courtroom battles, no public breakdowns, just quiet signatures. In Hollywood, where most separations turn into televised wars, this calm raised more eyebrows than chaos ever could. To some, it looked like peace. To others, power. Because when a custody deal is this one-sided, it often means both sides are guarding something bigger than pride reputation. According to official court documents, Nicole and Keith had already agreed to everything weeks before the divorce filing. No alimony, no conditions, no drama. It ended as quietly as it began. That speed almost surgical left fans unsettled. To Rogan's analytical followers, based on open online discussions, not verified claims, it made sense. When someone doesn't contest custody, it's rarely about surrender. It's about damage control. In the Hollywood circle, silence is the most expensive form of protection. So when people saw that Keith Urban agreed to see his daughters only 59 days a year, they didn't see acceptance. They saw heartbreak, hidden behind grace. Because Keith isn't a man who hides his emotions. His music has always been his confession booth. Yet this time he said nothing. No statement. No interview. Just a single heart emoji on Nicole's anniversary post, a tiny symbol that suddenly felt like a farewell written in code. That silence spoke louder than any lyric. Fans began asking, what was he really protecting? His children, his privacy, or his image? Answers didn't come from Keith. They came from whispers, online timelines being dissected, tabloids stitching stories together. Some unconfirmed discussions suggested that Nicole had found something undeniable, not through confrontation, but revelation. She didn't explode. She warned. One final message, one last boundary. When it was crossed, she walked away. If those accounts hold any truth, it doesn't make her cold, it makes her human. Because love can endure distance, fame, and chaos. But it rarely survives being ignored. And that's what resonated most with fans, not scandal, but quiet heartbreak. In a world that worships noise, Nicole Kidman chose silence. And Keith, maybe out of love, maybe out of loss, chose the same. That silence became the story. It filled headlines without a single quote. And by the time entertainment outlets caught up to the court filings, the internet had already decided what it believed. Joe Rogan's name, though, never confirmed, added fuel to the mystery. Because when Rogan talks, people listen. Whether he's right or not, he shapes the conversation. And in this case, his name alone was enough to make the quiet between two people sound louder than any public feud ever could. Comedians, musicians, producers, managers, Keith Urban's world was a network that stretched across every corner of entertainment. So when fans stumbled upon those unverified, online claims suggesting Joe Rogan had connected the dots between Keith's endless touring schedule and Nicole's quiet decision to walk away, it didn't sound far-fetched. In Hollywood, truth rarely travels with proof. It just needs emotion, a pulse that syncs with what the audience already feels. And this story had rhythm. A husband lost in the noise of applause. A wife left alone in the calm after the concert. A warning unheeded. A silence that spoke louder than confrontation. Yet for every believer, there were doubters. They pointed out that no credible source ever quoted Rogan. that every supposed leak led back to anonymous blogs and forum threads. They argued the story didn't grow from fact, it grew from fascination. Because people find it easier to believe in betrayal than in quiet endings. The thought that love could fade without scandal feels too fragile, too human. But maybe that's exactly how it happened. Maybe Nicole and Keith didn't fight. They simply drifted apart like a song losing tempo until it quietly ends. And maybe Rogan never said a word. Maybe the internet just needed a familiar voice to narrate the mystery. Because when truth hides behind silence, audiences search for certainty, and Rogan's voice, even without evidence, sounds certain. That's how rumor becomes story and story becomes belief. In a world that craves villains and heroes, silence becomes the canvas where imagination paints its own ending. Please subscribe my channel for more unique and attractive videos.